What's up, everybody? My name is Tony Hope, and you're listening to the Hear Me Roar podcast, a sports show where I run my mouth about all things sports. And tonight, we are having the first ever Hear Me Roar post game reaction, immediate reaction. Super Bowl 58 has just gone off. I think they're still going over the interviews and haven't even announced the Super Bowl MVP yet. We are here. I'm with Noble Lewis, a sad 49ers fan tonight. An absolutely devastating loss in the most heartbreaking way at the end of the game. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right into this inaugural post game episode. I'm gonna let you get your initial thoughts out before we kind of go through the game. I know that you were really wanting to see your team finally get the job done. Y'all are rematching the same team that y'all played and lost to 4 years ago. You have arguably the best team that y'all have had since Kyle Shanahan has been head coach. Y'all are going against a Chiefs team that were the underdogs on the betting line going into the game. Y'all played them hard the entire night, especially in that first half, starting the second half off strong. Yet, when it came down to it in overtime, y'all failed to get the job done. What is on your mind right now?
I don't really know. There's a lot of things to process. I mean, I'm sure you know. It's just an interesting feeling when you lose the Super Bowl. It just feels like a whole season just went down the drain. I mean, it just feels. I mean, it literally feels like an entire season went down the drain. Big loss, Dre Green. We spoke about the linebackers. We spoke about them being instrumental in stopping Travis Kelsey. He didn't have a monster game, but Dre Greenlaw was severely missed. He tore his Achilles and running out onto the field. Um,
Yeah,
very
they got to do something about that damn fields,
yeah,
bro.
man, that was terrible. He tore his Achilles literally running. Not didn't For those who didn't see, it was not during a play or anything like that. It was a transition of the football from a punt, and he literally ran out on the field and tore his Achilles when he started to run. So, um, that was a big loss. I think that was more instrumental than we think, or I think that was one. It might slip under the radar a little bit, but look immediately. That's one of the first things that I think about. That man, I don't like. I mean, what have we said about Shanahan, man? Second half Shanahan, the play calling. I, every single time they ran a toss to the left side, it went from 7, 8 yards, and he just goes away from it. I don't know
It's,
what
it's
I like.
either I saw something that they started they had 6 plays to start off their second half, and they were
And
all
all six were
passes,
passes. All
all
six were
passes.
after a turnover. You got Patrick Mahomes making a mistake. He doesn't do that. He had Patrick Mahomes making a mistake. He gets a turnover, and you don't
Unforced
capital
error.
on their side of the field, and you
Yep.
don't even get three out of that. Like that,
They were
not
running
even
the
the
ball to the right side.
touchdown aside, they didn't even get three out of that. So that not capitalizing when they could. Special teams, Jake Moody. Shout out Jake Moody because he kicked some. He had multiple 50-yard kicks. Actually, set the record just for Harrison Butker to take the record later in the game, but set the record for longest field goal in a Super Bowl, and then did another 53-yard kick in overtime. So shout out him. He was clutch. Third round pick. He's going to be good for a very, very long time. Um, yeah, it was just a lot of play calling. I have to give one thing. I have to give credit to this. The Chiefs' defense was much better than I thought. I to be honest,
Way they were
we
very
both
good.
said it was going to be a defensive game, but they were even better than I thought, especially that secondary. Trent McDuffie, aside from that penalty in overtime, he was virtually locked down. One huge thing, and I don't want to sound like I'm making a bunch of excuses. It's going to sound like that, but I don't care. Um, Zero holding penalties from the Chiefs on 46 dropbacks. I personally saw multiple plays where Bosa was getting tackled in the backfield. I think, you know, I don't want to. I'm not like I said. I'm not going to make a whole bunch of excuses when it comes to officiating, but I find it very hard to believe zero holding penalties is just pretty, especially considering we saw them get multiple holding penalties against the Ravens, and I that's one thing I don't like. I mean that's a whole nother thing. But that I mean, there's a lot of plays. Obviously, when in the film, I'm gonna break down the film myself, look at every play. It's just it seemed like I don't know. It just seemed like Shanahan went away from what got us to the Super Bowl. Passing on early downs. I don't like that it was basically literally like it was in the second half, it felt like every possession was pass on first, incomplete, pass on second, 3-yard gain, and now you got a third and long. Like it felt like every third down was 8 yards, 10 yards. I gotta look at the average depth of third down, but it felt like that as well. Defense, I think they just got gassed by the end of that.
Yeah, I really think that this was a great win by Kansas City. Very great win for Kansas City. But I think this was more so the 49ers lost this game. They played, firstly, you come out in this first half and you play a tremendous game. You put the ball in Brock Purdy's hands early. I think he finished the half about 10 for 15 on like 150 something plus yards. He played the game very wonderfully. Like we saw multiple times in the games before against the Lions or against the Packers. He would stand in the pocket. He would feel the pressure coming, yet he would stay in the pocket and he will absorb contact while he's throwing the ball or after he's thrown the ball. Very poised in the pocket. I like what I saw from him, but we both said it in the previous episode. It was going to come down to number one, defense. We said it was going to be a defensive battle for sure. I said it was going to be a very close game. This was not going to be a shootout by any stretch of the imagination. And play calling. And in that second half, the play calling just completely collapsed by Kyle Shanahan and that 49ers offense. Like you said, the formula was there from the jump. Run the ball to the left side, outside zone runs behind Trent Williams. Let him lead the way. Why am I watching inside zone runs? Which, I mean, that's cool if you can mix it up. But why am I watching inside zone runs? Why am I watching you hand the ball off to the right side of the field when, like, there's no point in doing that? Like, firstly, the Chiefs are already a tough defense. They have one of the best secondaries in the league, the best secondary in the postseason, and their defensive line are stout. If you run the ball to the left side like they did all overtime, that's what confuses me. Kyle Shanahan went away from CMC in the second half. In overtime, man, CMC was the best player on the field. Easy.
That little toss from Purdy and took it 30 yards.
Yes, so I don't understand why you weren't putting the ball in like he is the playmaker of the 49ers offense. He's someone that you can throw it to and something you can hand it off to. He can make some shake, and he was not given ample enough opportunities starting off in the third quarter to where y'all can kind of try to blow the top off the game. Jake Moody had his field goal blocked. That was a super crucial turning point. That made it that could have made it a 4-point game. Instead, it was blocked. It keeps it at 3. So after they scored that field goal at the end to give them the 22-19 lead, instead of going up by 4, you're still up by 3. Chiefs responded with a 13-play, 75-yard drive, and in overtime. I'm talking about, and then a touchdown pass to McCole Hardman won the game. That was Patrick Mahomes. I liked that he would take control of the game. There was certain times where he would, as soon as the ball was snapped, it was a pass play. It wasn't a design quarterback run. He would get the ball, immediately take off because he knew the urgency and the magnitude of the game at stake. He knew that it was the 49ers were bringing pressure every time. As long as he got that one little opening, he was going to take off and go with it. Patrick Mahomes played a very well game, except for that one interception to start off the second half, which was unforced. It was a bad overthrown ball. From then on, perfect game, tightened up. This was one of the better Super Bowls in recent memory, in my opinion. Better than the last 2-3 years. Second overtime in NFL history. You already know the first one. We don't got to go there, but it was a horrible loss for the 49ers. I felt bad for them. I ain't gonna lie.
And it's just interesting seeing the lack of, I mean, it's interesting seeing the lack of certain adjustments by the 49ers. Like specifically with Mahomes and his mobility. Like I know he's one of the most dangerous passers, and you want as many defenders as you can dropping back. Why are you not spying him? Like, why?
Right.
He's shown that he's willing to use his legs right now. Why are you not spying him? Not to mention, I would have liked them to. They didn't blitz often. They rushed four very often, and rushing four is the reason that he was able to get these holes, because unless the pocket collapses literally like this, there's always going to be a hole because your DNs are coming, especially with Nick Bosa and Chase Young. The way they attack downfield. They don't collapse the pocket. So it always gave him that little avenue right there between the right guard and the right tackle. He took that every single time. Mahomes is one of the scariest players in the league at he reminds me of like Heat LeBron. I don't want to see him with the ball late. I don't want to late at all. I don't. That's why that third down where at the end of the game, where they didn't get that third down, where they after the 2-minute warning, it was about 1:57 on the clock. I was kind of saying to go for it there. I'm gonna be honest. It was 3rd and 4. They didn't get it because Trent McDuffie blitzed and batted the ball down. I know it was a tie game. It was a tie game. 49ers weren't down. I would have liked to see them go for it on 4th there, because that would have given you a chance. I just feel like they gave you more of a chance because they were already. Me personally, I just feel like it gave it more of a chance to end the game right there. They were playing not to lose. I mean, that's been the story of Kyle Shanahan's career. Playing not to lose instead of 4th quarter playing to win. They didn't. It just seemed like he wasn't. I don't know how much of this was on the 40 or was on the Chiefs secondary, because they were very good. It just seems like they weren't calling plays to scheme players open like we've seen in the past. Like, it just looked different, especially in the second half. First half, I mean, it was very close, but especially in the second half, it just felt different. It felt different. I mean, you saw the third quarter was probably one of the where it reminded me of that first Eagles quarter, because it was third and out. Finally got a touchdown, but still, it was still a whole lot of just ugly offense. In particular, defense was very stout on both sides of the ball. 49ers and Chiefs defense were both very stout, but it just felt offensively, it felt like the 49ers went away from what got them to that position.
And it can two things can be true. They definitely did, because we saw in the first half you held them to just 3 points. You only scored 10, but you held them to 3 points. And for most of the first half, Patrick Mahomes wasn't getting anything going. The Chiefs offense wasn't getting anything going. But in the Chiefs defense was incredible. George Kittle held to only 2 receptions for 4 yards. Brandon Ayuk, 3 receptions for 49 yards. Deebo Samuel, I'm gonna assume he got a hamstring cramp or something of the sort. Three receptions for 33 yards. Jawan Jennings was the best player on receiving the ball, minus Christian McCaffrey.
He was my Super Bowl MVP. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, Jawan Jennings was coming up clutch and making some great plays. He got a touchdown.
Had a big third down on that drive too.
I said that the Chiefs defense was going to be the unit that needed to step up the most. They stepped up when it was required the most in that second half. No, 0 red zone touchdowns for the 49ers in that overtime period. I was sitting there and I was watching it. I'm like, man, the 49ers moving this ball. Christian McCaffrey, he's picking up steam right now. And it's starting to look like those 49er snowballs that we are always referencing. But once they got within that 20 yards, especially when they got near the goal line, within 10 yards, I said, hey, you got to still convert against this Chiefs red zone defense. You got to, because they're one of the best in the league. They've been the best in the playoffs, and it showed up. They had to kick the field goal. Jake Moody, and with all that time left for the Chiefs,
it wasn't even a factor, because because they're guaranteed a possession. It doesn't even matter how long they take. They could take a whole second overtime quarter if they wanted to, as long as it was the same possession. So time wasn't even a factor in overtime.
There was no pressure on Patrick Mahomes at that point. Yeah. His defense got the job done. He got the field goal. So we're still in this game. And when it reminds me a lot of when Tom Brady won the coin toss.
Yeah.
and I knew it was over.
Foregone conclusion. Nah, I felt the same exact way. I
Yeah.
saw when I saw Mahomes get the ball back, it was just
Yeah, I said
unless they got a
yeah.
turnover, unless the 49ers defense forced a turnover, it felt like it was foregone. It felt like
because Andy Reid, he's not going to kick a field goal and go on a sudden death. That man's he's going to live and die on this last possession of this game. We're not going to go on a sudden death. We're not going to see what this game has for us afterwards.
It was fourth down. They had a fourth down opportunity to get off to end the game.
Yep.
And they gave up a run
Travis Kelce
on an option to no, not that one. It was when Patrick Mahomes had the option run. And
you're right. Yep. You're right.
And that was, I mean, and then there's certain things like that where, in my eyes, yeah, you want to stop Pacheco there, but I called a Mahomes run there. Like, it just felt pretty. There's certain plays, like Bosa crashed on that play. That's the reason Mahomes kept it and ran. I don't think,
which he was doing a good job not doing on previous plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was just so set. The goal is right there. You just have to stop this one thing. I think he was so set on stopping Pacheco, he didn't even consider, Mahomes being able to do what he can do. Yeah, it just felt. I mean, on that last. I mean, there's a lot of places. I'm gonna be able to. When I go through the film, and then when we come back on Tuesday, I'll be able to tell you a lot better. Like on the last throw with the third down, in overtime. Brandon Ayuk came wide open. I saw him at the top of the screen, but Chris Jones was able to be so disruptive. And that was another thing. The 49ers offensive line was some plays where they were great, but then on the plays when they were bad, they were really bad. Like there were certain plays we saw Purdy had a lot of time to dissect, but the chief secondary is very stout. But when the 49ers needed the offensive line the most, passing the ball, there were many times where they came up short. That third down being one of them. Another third down was when Debo was wide open in the end zone, but Chris Jones got the pressure on Purdy, and he overthrew him. Chris Jones had a very underrated role in that game. Or I think his value and what he was able to disrupt will be very understated in that game, but he had an outstanding game. Yeah, I think
y'all had different chances too. I was just thinking about this. The MVS, he didn't go down, ended up losing 4 yards.
Yeah, 2nd and 14, and then they gave up stuff. They gave up a spacing concept. They gave up a spacing. And that was another thing. Playing off. Another thing when I'm talking about playing to not lose instead of playing to win. It's 2nd and 14. The 49ers when they gave up about 7 yards on that second down was a spacing concept because every 49er DB dropped off, and that was a call by Steve Wilks. I don't like that. I don't like a call like that. Why are you giving them 40? Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and we said this, at taking what the defense gives you. If the defense is showing that they're playing the deep ball, he's just going to keep nailing you for 4 or 5 yards every play, and that's exactly what he did. So I think that's another thing. They were giving Mahomes too much real estate to take underneath. Certain quarterbacks, they might not take the underneath. Josh Allen, we saw him not take the underneath route, and it ended up costing them. Mahomes is going to take the underneath route if it's there. And he did it all in the second half, and he did it in overtime, and they were able to drive down the field. And so I think that's just another result of them playing not to lose instead of playing to win.
Yep, and we all know that is not what you can do in such a big game like this. I mean, what more can I say? Kyle Shanahan, the loser label is just going to continue to stick to him. The biggest loser in the NFL. It's his 3 times now. He's 0-3, 2 as a head coach, 1 as offensive coordinator. We don't even have to go back and look at this. We could save that for another time, but it's a consistent thing with him that, and he has a role in it. Let's not be mistaken. This man calls offensive plays. He did it in the Falcons versus Patriots Super Bowl. He did it in the Chiefs versus 49ers 1. And he did it again this time. And each game
leads.
Yes, and in each game we can pinpoint where he could have done this better. He could have done this more. In the Falcons loss, run the ball. That is a game where you're playing not to lose because you're up by so goddamn much. This game, you play to win. Stop going away from what has been working for you all season. Let's stop straying
all
away
your
from what's been going.
career, all your career, forget
Career.
the season. What your bread and butter is, your father created and perfected the West Coast zone run offense, that outside zone run. He has been doing that. His father did it. His father coined it and perfected it. He passed it on to you. He's been doing it all career as an
You have the
OC,
personnel.
as a quarterback coach, as an OC, now as the head coach. You, like you said, you have the personnel. You have the arguable best left tackle, or not arguable best left tackle, arguable best offensive lineman in the NFL. Why are you not abusing him until they show you that they're not going for it? You're doing inside zone plays against the top 3 D tackle in the league,
Right.
and Chris Jones.
It never made sense to me when I was watching it happen. I was getting frustrated looking at it. Like, okay, you want to mix it up? That's cool, but this is not the way to do so.
Exactly.
That's not the way to do so.
There's going to be a lot of fingers you can point. One of my biggest ones, and because it's consistent at this point, one of my biggest fingers is at Shanahan. I mean, it's consistent. It's too consistent at this point that we've seen. I mean, Brock Purdy had 38 dropbacks, I believe. Brock Purdy had 38 dropbacks. CMC had 22 carries, also had 8 receptions. That 22 carries, I think, should have probably been about 35. Like there was just so many. I mean, he's too dynamic of a running man. He's the damn offensive player of the year. He's too dynamic of a player. I don't care what you have to do to get him the ball. We saw it in overtime. They gave him the ball on a pass, on a check down, and he was able to take it 30 yards. The thing about players like CMC, it's not, obviously the inside zone didn't work, and I don't know why he kept doing that, but it was about getting the ball to your playmakers, and it didn't seem like they were able to do that effectively.
Exactly.
Debo had three carries and only had three catches. Ayuk only had 3 catches. It's just like, why are these certain players not getting? I mean, Juwan Jennings did great with the opportunities he had, but why is he your leading receiver?
Yeah, I think that last part, that's on the Chiefs. Well, I guess it could be on both. Deebo Samuel had 11 targets and only 3 catches. Brandon Ayuk had 6 targets and only 3. So maybe because Deebo going 3 for 11. I don't care how banged up he is. That don't sound right. So definitely the type of plays being ran or being drawn. I just got the notification. Patrick Mahomes named the MVP. What's new? It was just very frustrating, and Shanahan deserves a lot of critique in this, and deservedly so. He deserves it. Now we're looking at the Chiefs. This is their 3rd Super Bowl win in 5 years. They're officially a dynasty. Of course, there was a whole lot of discussion that even if they lose since they got back, hey, we can cut all that out. Chiefs are a dynasty. Andy Reid has his 3rd Super Bowl win. He is now tied for 3rd most by a head coach. Only Chuck Noll and Bill Belichick have more. It's a
for Belichick.
Oh yeah,
6 double.
Bill Belichick has 6.
Got to do it again.
Yeah, and now one thing that I want to bring up is I mentioned after the AFC Championship game, when we were covering the championship games, I was talking about the Ravens, and I said how you don't know when you'll be back here. Of course, you can strive to get back here, but a lot of stuff has to go right. And especially this was your best chance against a Chiefs team that, looking at previous seasons, even a season where they lost to the Bengals and they didn't make the Super Bowl. I
think this defense is the best they've ever had. I'm gonna be honest.
It is. Now offensively, what I was going to say was now we're looking at it like, okay, well, we know the Chiefs aren't going to have this same offense where they're struggling to find a number 1 or get the ball into these receivers' hands. It drops and this and that. They're not going to be like this next year. We know this. And now, guess what? They just won back-to-back. A 3-peat is on the horizon. This is just going to fuel any top free agent. any trade targets, anybody that's on a trade market, this is just going to entice them to go play for Kansas City more because that defense ain't going to change. You got your people solidified. L'Jarius Sneed had a good game, minus that him slapping, who was that? Ayuk in the face in front of the referee. That was an idiot play, but that was another thing too. The 49ers didn't take advantage of the Chiefs' mistakes, but that's not here nor there. It's you got L'Jarius Sneed. Nick Bolton's going to stay there. He's going to be in the Chiefs uniform for probably the rest of his career. Chris Jones as well. You got Trent McDuffie. Like it's you're gonna their defensive pieces are there. They're not going to change.
Probably not leaving. I don't know when he's gonna get a head coaching opportunity. I would be very shocked if he. I mean, well, was he a head coach previously? I
don't think so, but he was. I think he was the DC for when the Giants beat the Patriots. So I think he might just be comfortable in his role.
He must just like being a DC because he he very. I mean, when you talk about defensive coordinators, his name has no choice but to be top 3. Yeah, only other ones I can think about are maybe Mike McDonald when he was a DC. But just as a defensive mind, there's probably about Mike McDonald and maybe DeMeco Ryans. That's probably his only comp that I would say are in the same tier as a defensive mind. So. Like you said, continuity. This is what we spoke when we talk about all continuity in the NFL is the most difficult sport because it's 53 people on the roster plus however many coaches there are, all the position coaches plus a head coach off OCDC. You got damn near training staff that's important as well. From everybody top down, GM, owner. 49ers just lost their GM, Adam Peters, to the Commanders. So that's a big piece you're losing. He drafted all those late round superstars, Kittle, Warner, Greenlaw, all of those, Purdy. So when we speak about continuity, it's unprecedented what the Chiefs are doing. Like we saw what Brady and the Patriots did in the early 2000s, but even that doesn't feel like this because it just feels it's so rapid. Like this is normally an NBA type dynasty where it's 3 championships in 5 years. The dynasties in the NFL, Steelers were 10 years, Raiders were like 10 years, 49ers were 15 years, Cowboys were 15 years, Patriots were 20 years. That's how long dynasties last in the or take in the NFL. 3 and 5 is ridiculous. Not to mention that they had a 4th trip. So it's I don't know when Mahomes gets stopped. I'm gonna be honest. Like I don't know. Like this is the worst offense that he's had in the Super Bowl, and he still found a way to put up 26 points. I don't know how, until Travis Kelce's legs fall off the bone and he has to retire. I don't know how you. I mean, well, I'll say one of the biggest things is. It just seems like teams that go against him, the biggest thing about going against the Chiefs going forward, it was in the past, but going forward has to be taking advantage of opportunities. 49ers didn't do it. That's why at the end of the day, that's one of the biggest reasons why they lost. They had multiple opportunities to take advantage of. Like we said, interception on their side of the field. That should be a guaranteed 3. There's no way you don't get at least a field goal out of that, or at least in field goal range. They had to punt. They had to punt. It wasn't even a missed field goal. They had to punt the ball after intercepting the ball on their side of the 50. That's unacceptable. And there's just, I mean, this Chiefs team is, I mean, you can't, Mahomes is looking like LeBron right now. I don't know what
I think that is the best comparison. It's the best comparison. You know, even LeBron wasn't having all this success at 28. 28, he was just winning his 2nd title? Probably, I think winning his 2nd title. Look, Patrick Mahomes is 28. He's 15-3 in the postseason. He's only played 6 years. He has 3 championships before the age of 30. Like this is he's and then the last 2 years, 7-0. In the postseason. We talked all this talk this year. He's on the road in the playoffs. He's not going to have a chance in the playoffs because he's on the road. It's going to be hard. He's going against the Dolphins in there. their high caliber offense going against Josh Allen, and the Bills started the game off so strong, and he's playing at home, and this and that. The Ravens and their top tier defense, best team in the league, best roster, this and this. Now they're going against the 49ers. He went into the game as an underdog, the Chiefs, and now look, it's the conditions may change, but the script remains the same apparently, and it was another come from behind victory for Patrick Mahomes. Let's also put that straight. I think now all 3 of his Super Bowl wins came from behind. We're looking at the next, Hall of Fame quarterback. I thought it was going to be even before Patrick Mahomes.
He could walk off the field right now and say, "I'm done with football." He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I thought after Tom Brady, I thought it was going to be a little gap between the next generational QB. They ended up playing each other multiple times. Like it overlapped each other, which is such an odd thing to witness in the world of sports, seeing 2 generation, not just good and very good rivalry, and generationally great quarterbacks and players play against one another. I don't know how the 49ers stand going forward. Of course, you can't sit on it too long, but I mean, you just got to really think.
They've got a lot of players under contract. They don't, obviously with injuries, you never know how that works, but assuming that they're healthy, roster-wise, the roster isn't moving much. So that's one of the few things that they can go into next season looking forward to, is that Brock Purdy is still going to be the 32nd most paid quarterback. So you still have the money to pay everybody else on the roster. Kittle's still there. Trent's still there. Obviously, they're getting older, but, these guys are still there. So I will say that that's one thing. Coaching-wise, they're probably going to keep Steve Wilkes. I don't see him getting another head coaching. Well, all the head coaching jobs are gone. So he's probably going to stay as the DC, barring him going to college for whatever reason. I doubt he would do that. So that would be one thing. Injuries aside, but now Achilles. Dre Greenlaw tore his Achilles. So now you got to get him to rehab, and you don't know how he's going to come.
It's already been a hard season, banged up for all these different players. Like, surprisingly to me, CMC was probably the most healthy player on the team. That one of the most physical positions in the game. He stayed healthy the whole season. It was Debo who's getting banged up, and Trent Williams missed a little bit of time. Now Dre Greenlaw tearing his Achilles running out onto the field is fucking insane. It's a freak accident. It's hard to see.
He got that hamstring injury just running a route that he didn't he didn't even get thrown on that.
That was just an accumulation from how just his body just getting banged up all year. And it's, of course, you can't harp on it too long because you still got the people. But it's like, what else can you do to improve this team? Of course, we know, the secondary, the offensive line. Try to bolster the interior, maybe.
Offensive line, absolutely. I don't care if he's in all 7 draft rounds on offensive line. We got to hit somewhere. That is when you look at the weakness of the 49ers, that is one of the, I got to look at the actual pressure numbers on the dropbacks, but that is one of the clear weaknesses of this team is interior. Everything outside of number 71 was trash. They were the number 26,
very bad,
24th ranked offensive line in pass pro.
Because we're not talking about, we saw it a little bit in the Lions game with Aiden Hutchinson getting to Brock Purdy, but majority of the time, it's the interior defensive lineman getting there. The D tackles causing chaos, tipping balls, collapsing the pocket. So we're not talking about a team that lets up a lot of sacks. We're just talking about an offensive line that just continues to just shrink the pocket so much and making it just tougher on your quarterback to get the ball off comfortably.
Brock Purdy's already
on the offensive line.
Brock Purdy's already on the shorter side. When you have a 6'5" lineman barreling down on him from the front, that ruins passing lanes. It's when you see it on TV, for those who aren't as big, or you have to actually watch. Because Tua actually did a helmet cam from practice when they were behind the offensive lineman. There are certain throwing lanes. Offensive linemen exist, and defensive linemen exist. You can't just throw the ball through them. The ball won't travel through them. Yeah. You have to have certain arm angles and things of that sort. And so when you have all this pressure coming from the front, It's one thing to have the edge rusher. You can get the ball out when there's an edge rusher because he's just going to hit you afterward. But when it's coming from the front, it ruins your visibility. It ruins your arm angles. It throws everything out of whack. And we saw multiple times where Brock had to scramble out the pocket on just almost what should be like a routine play. He had to make something out of nothing back there in the pocket. And offensive line is my biggest going into this draft. Like I said, I don't care if they spend all 7 picks on offensive line. You got to hit somewhere. You gotta bolster that interior because it's kind of ridiculous.
It is. I'm trying to sit up here and think. Before we wrap up this episode, because you already know we're gonna be breaking down the film and much more, and have much more nuanced discussions Tuesday morning.
Joe Burrow coming back.
I kind of
put into this Mahomes stuff.
Who?
Joe Burrow.
Who?
That's Joe Burrow. One man in the AFC I got hope for.
I don't want to hear you talk about Joe Burrow. You compare Brock Purdy to Joe Burrow. I don't want to hear you bring up Joe Burrow.
Oh yeah, I would be comfortable going against Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl. I would be kicking my feet up.
I want to hear that from you.
With an umbrella in it. But yeah, I think just meant so many decisions that could have made differently.
I'm trying to. So yeah, I mean, it was a bad. It just sucked to watch too. Not because I'm a 49ers fan. Not because I wanted them to win. I had no dog in the fight. I was just very entertained by the game. I wanted to see a good game. I'm glad we got one. But when I saw the way that the Chiefs were moving the ball up the field, some of the more improbable things were happening. Like I said, you let MVS loses 4 yards. You saw Patrick Mahomes put his hands up like, why? You saw Chris Jones on the bench literally yelling at him like, get the fuck down. Like, what are you doing? It was a very, you couldn't make mistakes like that. That could have been a game sealing mistake. And you let them get back that whole, what was it, to get within on the goal to go with Travis Kelce. Man, tossed it. He was running behind his offensive lineman and somehow trucking forward through all that contact. Yeah, you could see how tired the 49ers defense, Fred Warner missing tackles. Travis Kelce shrugged off at least 2 people because they were trying to tackle him upper body. It was just improbable situations happening.
Right, and then we didn't even mention the punt that set up the touchdown to tie the game. They bounced off the dude, the gunner.
The back foot, yeah.
And then my problem after that, Ray had a chance on it if he would have just fall on the damn ball, but he went to scoop it up instead of just falling on the ball and securing possession.
We talked about that before.
He did a good job of noticing that it bounced off his foot, but then at that point, fall on the ball. You have it's a punt. This isn't like a scoop and score opportunity on defense. It's a punt. You're about to receive possession. All that matters is getting possession at that point. And he didn't fall on the ball. He tries to scoop it up. He drops it, and the Chiefs ended up getting it. And not to mention CMC fumbling on the first drive when they were actually – that first drive, 49ers came out swinging. They averaged 9.5 yards per play on the first drive until that CMC fumble. So just stuff like that. Stuff like that just silly turnovers, things of that sort. I mean, I know they got the fumble back with Pacheco, but just things like it just felt like you said, the 49ers lost. The Chiefs didn't win as much as the 49ers lost this game. They shot themselves in the foot too many times.
They did. Kyle Shanahan, he reminds me a lot of Mike D'Antoni. Great in the regular season. Man, I'm talking about record-setting top offenses. Mike D'Antoni in the 7-second offense. Of course, when he had James Harden and Chris Paul, just, leading just a great regular season team. And then when it comes down to it, when you need to do it most, of course, Mike D'Antoni never appeared in the finals, but he had some squads. And unfortunately, he never was able to get it done. And I think that I look at Kyle Shanahan in the same light. So it's going to be a tough offseason for the 49ers, especially in the way they lost.
Narrative won't change until he wins. He will have that name. Even I gotta agree with you now, knowing that name, the biggest loser. And You say sports. I'm gonna just say the NFL, but you say
Nah, I'm saying sports.
I'm gonna say the
Besides
big.
Doc Rivers.
Yeah,
Besides
see,
Doc
that's
Rivers.
he's got some competition. He's got some
Yeah, I'd
competition.
say
I'm
those
not gonna-
two. Yeah, other than those two, shit, them both of them biggest losers in their respective sports, and definitely we can compare the two. At least one of them has a championship ring. That's all I can say.
You said Mike D'Antoni too.
Mike D'Antoni, we could throw him in there. We could throw him in there, but man, I'm just it's just so disappointing watching Kyle Shanahan in these big moments. Sometimes
It
like
felt
I'm
like
sitting there
PTSD.
watching it.
You got PTSD from yours, and I got you were getting flashbacks from yours, and I was getting flashbacks from mine. I literally felt
Yep.
the same as I felt the exact same as I did watching the game 4 years ago.
Yep, because when I saw him get that ball, or when I saw him kick a field goal, and they couldn't put the game away, I knew it was going to happen because we already it was creeping towards that in the fourth quarter. They just couldn't score. It was creeping towards that because look, at the end of the fourth quarter, mind you, they had the chance to take the lead and win the game, but the time just didn't permit. So they said, all right, look, only 6 seconds left. Let's just kick the field, go take it to overtime. So they were already getting there. So when he got the ball back in overtime, oh, they're not going to make the same mistake. They got all this time. They have no pressure on themselves because regardless, if they get into scoring range, they're going to take the shot. So they're going to live or die by Patrick Mahomes' arms or legs. And lo and behold, they didn't even call their final timeout on that game sealing touchdown to McCole Hardman. They just let the clock run.
That was another thing. The timeouts would have reset in the next quarter. The quarter was about to end. The timeouts would have reset in the next quarter, I believe. I do think that the timeouts reset, so they would have gotten the timeouts back, or at least got one timeout back. You know your defense is tired. You know they're gassed. They've been playing for, at that point, was that 60 plus 15, 75 minutes of football. They're more tired than that offense is. And they just got a big first down. You don't have you don't know the personnel, all of that stuff. Give yourself a time to recoup, time to figure out what you're gonna do on defense to stop this goal to go situation. But
I didn't get that neither because the 49ers had three timeouts too, right?
Two timeouts.
Because
they used one on that third down before. On the third down, literally like 2 plays or the play before.
And I just don't get it. I don't get it. Like,
it seems that
could have been talking about a different game. Could have been talking about a different game if Patrick Mahomes spiked the ball in the fourth quarter. Like, the game would have been over. Could have. Because now he didn't have to wait for the time to run all the way down, waiting for Isaiah Pacheco to get back into the backfield. So, hey, man, it was a horrible loss to see just because, number one, I relate. Number two, it was a very winnable game. So we will be back on Tuesday to break down the results even further, to look forward to the offseason, what's next for these two units, and what this means for the careers of the respective players and teams and whatnot. I enjoyed this format. You know what I'm saying? Immediate post-game reaction. I'm sure you would have wanted it to be in a more favorable light. Wish you would have been here celebrating a win. But hey, man, at least y'all have been back to the Super Bowl. That's one thing I can't say. So, that's one thing I can't really relate to.
You know, I don't care about no appearance, man. It don't mean nothing if we don't win.
So it's a thing where the 49ers are going to have to rebuild, not just, be prepared for next season. They got to rebuild their selves. They're going to come back and have this. They have to rebuild their identity now. And we can get into this more, or I will get into this more into Tuesday, but this isn't just an ordinary loss in the Super Bowl. They're going to have to rebuild themselves. And I see so many parallels to the Falcons, and we can get into this more on Tuesday, but this was a devastating loss.
Yeah. Well, a few silver linings. Brock Purdy, it reminds me, I'm not comparing him to Acuna because he's the MVP of his league. He's one of the best in his sport. But it reminds me of Acuna came back, because I called this when Ronald Acuna tore his ACL and he came back. He didn't look like the same Acuna. He didn't look like MVP level Acuna that we saw before when he came back mid-season. Part of that was because during that offseason, instead of getting better, he had to rehab just to get back to the point where he can be on the field. Brock Purdy is in the same situation for me. Last offseason, he didn't really get an offseason. He had to rehab. He had the surgery, and then he had to focus on getting his arm literally able to throw the ball. Now he's going to get a full offseason. He's got a full season of game on his resume. So I think his experience is only going to get, experience can only help. There's no way experience is going to hurt you. So that is one of the few silver linings that I see, because he is, I mean, we have no reason to think he's going to get worse. I think he's only going to get better as he's seen more packages. Now he's been in the Super Bowl. He knows what it feels like, the pressure of being in a Super Bowl. So if he's in the position again, there's certain emotions that he might not feel, certain pressure he might not feel. So if there's a couple silver linings, that is one of the biggest ones for me.
And with that, I'm going to wrap this episode up. We will be back here on Tuesday morning. This is the first ever post-game reaction. We will be doing this a lot more. Let us know if y'all like it. We have a lot of more big events coming up. We have more Hear Me Roar coming up, and ain't nothing gonna stop. This has been Hear Me Roar, Super Bowl 58 post-game reaction. My name is D. Tony Hope. That is my co-host Noble Lewis, and we are out.